My mother's text, "Skip your sister's wedding, the groom is a senator, don't embarrass us." I replied, "Okay," but I went anyway. I sat in the back of a glittering ballroom wearing a silver butterfly bracelet I'd kept for 12 years. Senator Marcus Webb stood at the microphone speaking about loyalty and family values. Then his eyes found mine, found the bracelet. His face went white. His voice cracked mid-sentence. He set down the microphone and walked out of his own wedding reception. 300 guests fell silent. He recognized that bracelet and he knew whose it was. Have you ever watched a powerful man crumble simply because you existed? The stories on this channel are created solely for entertainment, educational, and storytelling purposes. While some stories are inspired by real situations submitted by viewers via email, most details have been fictionalized, combined, or altered. My name is Rebecca Torres. I'm 36 years old, a freelance editor living alone in Portland, Oregon. 8 years ago, I walked away from investigative journalism, a career I loved, because some stories break you in ways that never fully heal. I learned early that my family had a favorite, and it wasn't me. My younger sister, Melissa, was the golden child, prettier, more charming, more willing to perform for our mother's approval. I spent my 20s trying to earn something that was never available to me. By 30, I stopped trying. I moved 2,500 miles away and built a life that didn't depend on anyone's recognition. I had a small apartment with good light work that paid the bills and a kind of peace I'd never known while living under my mother's roof. I hadn't been home for Christmas in 3 years. Some distances are measured in miles. Others are measured in silence. 2 weeks before my sister's wedding, my mother's name appeared on my phone. Not a call, a text. Linda Torres didn't believe in small talk even in writing. "Don't come to the wedding. The groom is a senator. We can't risk anything." I read it twice, then a third time. No greeting, no explanation. Just a command, as if I were an inconvenience to be managed, rather than a daughter to be included. I typed back, "What do you mean, risk?" My phone rang immediately. Linda's voice was tight-controlled, the voice she used when she needed something to go her way. "Rebecca, I'm asking you nicely. Marcus told me something in confidence, and I need you to respect it. Apparently years ago you wrote some very unfair articles about his charity work. He's worried you still hold a grudge. He thinks you might try to cause problems at the wedding." I sat very still. "I never wrote anything about Marcus Webb." "Well, he seems to think you did. And frankly, I don't want any drama. This wedding is important not just for Melissa, but for all of us. Marcus is on the short list for a cabinet position. There are going to be very powerful people there. I need everything to be perfect." She hung up without saying goodbye. That was Linda, always moving on to the next task, never lingering on the mess she left behind. But her words kept turning in my mind. I had never written about Senator Marcus Webb. I had never even heard of him until Melissa announced her engagement 6 months ago. So why would he think I had? Unless he wasn't always Marcus Webb. I went to my closet and pulled down an old box files from my journalism days, stories I'd never been able to let go. My fingers found a folder labeled Sunrise Foundation 2013. 12 years ago, I'd investigated a charity that helped single mothers. The deputy director was a young, ambitious man named Mark Weber. A woman named Elena Vasquez had contacted me, desperate and pregnant. She told me Weber had promised to help her, then exploited her vulnerability. She said he'd gotten her pregnant and threatened to take her baby if she ever spoke publicly. I'd worked on that story for months. Then my editor killed it, not enough evidence, too many legal risks. And Elena herself had called me sobbing, begging me to stop. He said if I talk, he'll take my baby away. Please, I can't lose her. I'd stopped. I'd respected her wishes. I'd buried the story and eventually buried my career along with it. Now I opened my laptop and searched for images of Senator Marcus Webb. I placed his photo beside the old picture of Mark Weber. Same jaw, same eyes, same man. He'd changed his name, moved to a different state, reinvented himself as a champion of family values. And now he was about to marry my sister and potentially become one of the most powerful men in America. I opened the last file in the folder, a photograph of Elena, 8 months pregnant, tears streaming down her face. On the back, in her handwriting, he said he'd help me. He said he loved me. He lied. I searched for Elena Vasquez online. The first result was an obituary. She died of cancer 5 years ago. Elena was gone, but the man who destroyed her was still climbing. I closed the folder and opened a flight booking website. Before I booked that flight, I needed to know what had happened to Elena. 12 years is a long time. People move, they change, they rebuild their lives. I hoped that was what Elena had done. I hoped she had found some measure of peace, raised her. Child escaped the shadow of the man who had hurt her, But when I typed her name into the search bar, the first result told me everything I needed to know. Elena Vasquez had died 5 years ago. Cancer. She was only 34 years old. I sat at my kitchen table and cried for a woman I had failed, a woman whose story I had abandoned because I was too afraid of the consequences. Elena had trusted me with her truth, and I had let that truth die with her. But as I read further, I discovered something that changed everything. Elena had left behind a daughter. Her name was Sophia, and she was 12 years old now. According to public records, Sophia lived with her maternal grandmother, Carmen Vasquez, age 71, in a small apartment in Richmond, Virginia. Richmond was 30 minutes from the venue where my sister was about to have $1 million wedding to the man who had abandoned his own child. I found Carmen's phone number through a public record search. My hands were shaking when I dialed. The phone rang 4 times before an elderly woman answered, her voice cautious and tired. I introduced myself, explained that I had known Elena years ago, that I was a journalist who had tried to tell her story. Carmen cut me off before I could finish. "I don't know who you are," she said. "Don't call again." The line went dead. I understood her fear. She had spent years protecting her granddaughter from a powerful man who wanted them to disappear. A stranger calling out of nowhere, claiming to be a friend of her dead daughter, must have felt like a trap. I could not blame her for hanging up, but I could not give up either. I went to my files and found the photograph Elena had given me 12 years ago. It was a picture of her 8 months pregnant, standing in front of the Sunrise Foundation office. She had wanted proof that she had been there, that the relationship had been real, that she was not making it up. On the back she had written those words I could never forget. I made a copy of the photograph and wrote a handwritten note on a separate piece of paper. Elena showed me this. She wanted me to tell her story. I failed her, but I haven't forgotten. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. I included my phone number and mailed the envelope to Carmen's address. Then I waited. 3 days later, my phone rang. I did not recognize the number, but I knew who it was before I answered. Carmen was crying. "Elena kept a photo just like this," she said. "She kept it hidden in a box under her bed. She told me that one day someone would believe her. I've been waiting 12 years for you." We talked for 2 hours that first call. Carmen told me everything, and with each word, the man my sister was about to marry became more monstrous in my mind. Marcus Webb, who had been Mark Webber back then, had met Elena when she came to the Sunrise Foundation seeking help. She was 22, alone, working 2 jobs to pay rent. He was the deputy director, handsome and charming, and he told her he would personally make sure she got the assistance she needed. Within months, they were involved. He bought her gifts, took her to nice dinners, made her feel special. He gave her a silver bracelet with a butterfly design and a small sapphire custom-made with their initials engraved on the inside, M and E, Marcus and Elena. He told her he loved her. He told her they would be together. Then she got pregnant and everything changed. Marcus told Elena the baby was a mistake. He said if she told anyone about their relationship, he would have her declared an unfit mother. He knew people, he said. He could make her life very difficult. Elena was terrified. She kept quiet, had the baby alone, and raised Sophia without ever naming the father on the birth certificate. She never stopped hoping that someday he would come back, that he would want to know his daughter. He never did. Instead, he changed his name, moved to a different state, and built a political career on the image of a man who believed in family values. Carmen told me she had tried to get justice after Elena died. She went to a lawyer about filing a paternity suit to get child support for Sophia. The lawyer was honest with her. "He's a United States senator," the lawyer said. "He has a legal team that will bury you in paperwork for years. Do you have $50,000 to fight this case? Because that's what it will cost minimum." Carmen did not have $50,000. She had Social Security and a granddaughter to feed. She let it go, but Marcus had not let it go. 2 years ago, a man in an expensive suit showed up at Carmen's door. He offered her $50,000 to sign a non-disclosure agreement promising never to speak about Sophia's father to anyone. Carmen refused. She told him to leave. Since then, strange things had started happening. Cars she did not recognize parked across the street from her apartment for hours at a time. A man in sunglasses followed her at the grocery store. She started varying her routines, taking different routes home, always checking over her shoulder. Marcus knew about Sophia. He had always known. And he was watching them, waiting, making sure they stayed silent until his power was absolute, and no one would believe a poor old woman and her granddaughter over a cabinet secretary or a future vice president. Before we ended that first call, Carmen asked if I would come see her in person. I said yes. 2 days later, I was sitting in her small living room in Richmond, drinking coffee from a chipped mug, looking at photographs of Elena and Sophia covering every wall. Carmen gave me 2 things that afternoon. The first was a letter Elena had written before she died, addressed to Sophia, to be opened when she was old enough to understand. Carmen had never read it. She said it was not her place. The second was the butterfly bracelet. Carmen pressed it into my hands with tears in her eyes. Elena wore this every day until she got too sick, she said. She kept it as proof that it was real, that she wasn't imagining things. Marcus thought she threw it away years ago. He has no idea it still exists. I put the bracelet on my wrist. It felt like a promise. That night, I returned to my hotel. As I walked across the parking lot, I noticed a black sedan parked across the street, engine off, windows tinted. I had never seen it before. I kept walking, kept my pace steady, did not look back. When I reached my room, I locked the door and sat on the bed, heart pounding. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. The message read, "I know what you're digging up. Stop." An hour later, another message. "You visited Carmen Vasquez today. That was a mistake. People who make mistakes have accidents. Drop this." I stared at the screen for a long time. My hands were not shaking. I was not afraid. I was angry. I looked at the threatening messages, then at the butterfly bracelet on my wrist. I thought about Elena dying of cancer at 34, never seeing justice. I thought about Sophia, 12 years old, growing up without knowing why her father never wanted her. I thought about Melissa, my sister, about to marry a predator who had chosen her like a prop for his political theater, a pretty face to complete his perfect image. I deleted the messages. I packed my bag for the wedding. Some fights are worth having even when you might lose. The wedding was held at the Grand Bellamy Hotel, one of the most expensive venues in Virginia. I arrived Saturday evening wearing a simple navy dress I had bought years ago for a work event. Nothing flashy, nothing attention-seeking. On my wrist, I wore the butterfly bracelet. It caught the light as I walked through the lobby, the small sapphire, glinting like a secret waiting to be told. 300 guests filled the ballroom, a sea of politicians, donors, and carefully curated friends. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. White roses covered every table. A string quartet played softly in the corner. This was not just a wedding reception. This was a coronation, the final piece of Marcus Webb's perfect image before the vetting committee made its decision about his cabinet appointment. I saw my mother before she saw me. Linda stood near the entrance in a champagne-colored gown, greeting guests with the practiced smile of a woman who had finally gotten everything she wanted. Then her eyes found me and her face drained of color. She crossed the room quickly, her heels clicking against the marble floor. She grabbed my arm and pulled me aside, her grip tight enough to leave marks. "What are you doing here?" she hissed. "Marcus warned me you'd try something. Don't you dare ruin this." I looked at her calmly. "I'm here for my sister's wedding, Mom. That's all." Linda's eyes narrowed. "I told you not to come. I specifically told you." Before I could respond, Melissa appeared. My sister looked beautiful in her white gown, her hair pinned up with tiny crystals, her face glowing with the happiness of a bride who believed she had found her prince. But when she saw me, confusion clouded her features. "Rebecca, what are you doing here? Mom said you couldn't make it." I smiled at her, a real smile filled with all the love I still felt for my little sister despite everything. "I wanted to see you get married. You're my sister. I couldn't miss it." Melissa hesitated, caught between her mother's obvious displeasure and her own surprise at seeing me. Then her eyes dropped to my wrist. "That's pretty," she said, reaching out to touch the bracelet. "I've never seen you wear something like that." I looked down at the butterfly, at the sapphire that had once symbolized promises a predator had never intended to keep. "It belonged to someone who couldn't be here tonight," I said. "I'm wearing it for her." Melissa nodded, not understanding, already distracted by a guest calling her name. She hurried away without asking more. She had no idea that I had just told her the most honest thing I had ever said. I found a seat at a table in the back of the ballroom, far from the head table where Marcus would sit. I did not want to be noticed. I did not want to cause a scene. I simply wanted to be present, to let him see me, to let him know that Elena's story had not been forgotten. For an hour, I watched the reception unfold. Guests mingled and laughed. Champagne flowed freely. Politicians shook hands and posed for photographs. Then Marcus Webb took the microphone, and the room fell silent. He stood at the front of the ballroom, tall and handsome in his perfectly tailored tuxedo, every inch the picture of a successful man. He smiled at the crowd, that same charming smile I had seen in photographs from 12 years ago. The smile that had convinced Elena Vasquez she had found someone who would save her. "Thank you all for being here tonight," he began. "Melissa and I are so grateful to be surrounded by family and friends as we begin this new chapter together. He launched into a speech about love and commitment, about the importance of family values, about building a future based on trust and integrity. The words flowed smoothly, practiced and polished. I watched donors nodding approvingly. I saw cameras flashing as photographers captured the moment. This was the image that would carry Marcus Webb to the cabinet, maybe someday to the White House. A devoted husband, a man of principle, a champion of everything good and decent. Then his eyes swept across the room and they landed on me. I saw the moment he recognized me. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but he was a professional. He kept talking, his voice steady, his smile fixed in place. I raised my hand slightly, letting the bracelet catch the light. His eyes dropped to it, and I saw something flicker across his face. Recognition, fear. But still he continued, still he maintained his composure. So I lifted my phone. I did not aim it at him like I was recording. Instead, I angled the screen toward him, showing him what was on it. A photograph of Elena Vasquez holding her newborn daughter Sofia, the butterfly bracelet clearly visible on her wrist. Below the photo, a text message I had typed earlier. Sofia knows she wants to meet her father. Marcus's composure cracked. His voice wavered mid-sentence. He lost his place in the speech, stumbling over words he had probably rehearsed 100 times. Sweat appeared on his forehead. His hands gripped the microphone stand, like he needed it to hold himself up. The confident senator dissolved before my eyes into a stammering, panicked man. Guests began to whisper. Melissa stared at her groom with confusion and growing alarm. Marcus tried to recover, tried to find his rhythm again, but the damage was done. He said, his voice cracking. Excuse me, I need a moment. He set down the microphone and walked quickly toward the exit, not looking at his bride, not looking at anyone. I saw several guests raising their phones, filming his retreat. Within minutes, those videos would be everywhere. I followed him into the hallway. He was leaning against the wall near the service entrance, his face pale, his perfect composure completely shattered. When he saw me, his expression twisted with a mixture of fear and rage. What do you want? He demanded. Money, is that it? I'll give you whatever you want. Just name your price and disappear. I walked toward him slowly, letting him see the bracelet on my wrist. I don't want your money. He stared at the butterfly, at the sapphire that had once belonged to a woman he had destroyed. Where did you get that? I held up my wrist. Elena kept this until the day she died. She also left a letter for Sofia, your daughter. Carmen showed me everything. His face went white. You have no proof of anything. I almost laughed. I have 12 years of investigation notes. I have a victim's dying letter. I have a daughter who just learned the truth about her father, but I'm not here to destroy you, Marcus. I'm here to give you a choice. He said nothing, just stared at me with hatred burning in his eyes. Tell Melissa everything tonight, I continued. Confess before someone else exposes you. If you tell the truth yourself, maybe you can control the narrative. Maybe Melissa forgives you. Maybe you survive this. Marcus laughed bitterly. And if I don't? I met his gaze without flinching. Then I give everything to a journalist who's already asking why Senator Webb fled his own wedding reception. Your cabinet dreams, your Senate seat, your carefully constructed image. All of it gone. He stepped toward me close enough that I could see the vein pulsing in his temple. You have no idea what you're doing. I did not step back. You have 48 hours. I returned to the ballroom to find chaos. Guests clustered in groups, whispering and checking their phones. Linda was trying desperately to manage the optics, telling people Marcus had received an urgent call, that he would be back soon, that everything was fine. Melissa stood near the head table, tears streaming down her face, her perfect wedding crumbling around her. She saw me and rushed over, grabbing my arm hard enough to hurt. What did you say to him? What did you do? I looked at my sister, not with anger, but with sadness. I wished I could protect her from what was coming. I wished she had never met Marcus Webb. I gave him a chance to tell you the truth before someone else does, I said quietly. What he does with that chance is up to him. Marcus did not return. An hour later, word spread that his car had left the hotel. His phone went dark. By midnight, video clips of his meltdown were spreading across social media. The captions all asked the same question. Senator Webb flees his own wedding. What's he hiding? The 48 hours had begun. The 48 hours came and went. Marcus did not call Melissa. He did not contact me. He did not confess to anyone. Instead, he flew to Washington and had his press office release a carefully worded statement. A personal family matter required my attention during the wedding reception. Senator Webb and his fiancée remain committed to each other, and the wedding celebration will continue at a later date. The senator asks for privacy during this time. It was the kind of statement that worked for ordinary scandals, the kind that could be managed with patience and good ping-pong. But this was not an ordinary scandal. The video of his meltdown had already been viewed 400,000 times. News outlets were playing it on loop, analyzing his body language, speculating about what could have caused such a dramatic reaction. Comment sections filled with questions. What was he hiding? Why did he run? Who was the woman in the back of the room he kept staring at? Marcus thought he could wait this out, like he had waited out every other crisis in his career. He was wrong. I called Catherine Brooks the morning after the wedding. Catherine and I had worked together years ago at a regional newspaper before she moved on to bigger things. Now she was an investigative reporter at one of the largest papers in the country, and she had a reputation for taking down powerful men who thought they were untouchable. When I told her I had information about Senator Marcus Webb, she laughed. "I've been looking into him for months," she said. "Something about his charity background never added up. I just couldn't find the missing piece." I told her I had the missing piece. I told her about Elena Vasquez, about Sofia, about Carmen, about the surveillance operation and the threatening messages. I sent her my files from 2013, everything I had gathered before the story was killed. Catherine was quiet for a long moment after she finished reviewing them. "This is it," she finally said. "This is what I've been looking for. Give me 6 weeks." Catherine worked methodically over the following weeks. She flew to Richmond and interviewed Carmen on the record, documenting everything she knew about Marcus's relationship with Elena and the years of intimidation that followed. She tracked down the woman Marcus had paid $50,000 to sign a non-disclosure agreement 2 years ago. It took time, but Catherine convinced her to talk. The woman had always felt guilty about taking the money, about staying silent, while other victims might still be out there. She was ready to tell her story. Catherine filed Freedom of Information requests for Senate office expenditures and discovered something damning. Marcus had been making regular payments to a security consulting firm, payments that did not match any legitimate security services. She dug deeper and found the consultant himself, a man named David Mercer. When Catherine confronted him with what she knew, Mercer made a calculation. He could go down with Marcus, or he could cooperate and save himself. He chose survival. Mercer agreed to talk to FBI investigators in exchange for immunity. He provided emails, payment records, and surveillance logs. He gave a statement that would become the centerpiece of the investigation. "Senator Webb paid me to monitor an elderly woman and a 12-year-old girl," Mercer testified. "He told me it was opposition research. I didn't know I was stalking a child." 6 weeks after the wedding, the story broke. The headline spread across every news outlet in the country: Senator Marcus Webb, the family values fraud. Multiple women accused, rising political star, of exploitation and intimidation. The article detailed everything: Elena's story, the abandoned daughter, the surveillance operation, the payoffs, and the threats. Within hours, the vetting committee removed Marcus from consideration for the cabinet position. Party leadership issued a statement demanding his resignation. His colleagues, the same people who had attended his wedding reception and applauded his speech about family values, now rushed to distance themselves from him. But the most powerful moment did not come from politicians or journalists. It came from Sofia. Carmen had finally shown her Elena's letter, the one her mother had written before she died. Sofia read it alone in her room and cried for hours. When she emerged, she told her grandmother she wanted to speak. She wanted the world to know who her mother really was. Catherine handled it carefully. Sofia was only 12, too young to face the media alone. Catherine interviewed her, gently helped her express her thoughts in her own words, and let Sofia approve every sentence before publication. The result was a short statement that devastated everyone who read it. "My mother died alone because a powerful man made her afraid to tell the truth. She wasn't crazy, she wasn't lying, she was brave. Now I want everyone to know who she really was." The statement ran alongside a photograph of Sofia wearing her mother's butterfly bracelet, looking directly into the camera, with eyes that held both grief and defiance. That image became the defining symbol of the scandal. It was shared millions of times. It appeared on the cover of magazines. It reminded everyone that behind the political drama and the legal battles, there was a child who had grown up without a father because a powerful man had chosen his ambition over his own daughter. Melissa confronted Marcus before he could release any public statement. I was not there, but she told me about it later. She went to his apartment in Washington, still wearing her engagement ring, still hoping there was some explanation that would make everything okay. Marcus finally admitted the truth. Yes, he had been involved with Elena. Yes, Sofia was his daughter. Yes, he had paid people to keep them quiet. But he tried to minimize it, tried to make it sound like ancient history that had no bearing on who he was now. "It was 12 years ago," he said. "I've changed. I was going to tell you eventually." Melissa stared at him, and in that moment she saw him clearly for the first time. "You had me cut my own sister out of my wedding to protect yourself," she said. She removed her engagement ring and placed it on the table. She walked out without another word. My mother called me that same day. I expected anger, and I was not disappointed. Linda did not ask what had happened or why. She did not want to understand. She only wanted someone to blame. "You destroyed everything," she shouted into the phone. "This family will never recover from this. Are you happy now? Is this what you wanted?" I listened to her rage and I felt something I had not expected. I felt calm. "I didn't destroy anything, Mom," I said when she finally paused for breath. "I stood in a room and wore a bracelet. Marcus destroyed himself. And if you want to know why he asked you to exclude me from the wedding, it's because he knew I was the one person who might recognize him for what he really is." Linda hung up on me. I was not surprised. The night before I flew back to Portland, there was a knock on my hotel room door. I opened it to find Melissa standing in the hallway, her eyes red from crying, her face pale and exhausted. She looked older than she had 6 weeks ago, as if the weight of everything she had learned had aged her years in a matter of days. I stepped aside and let her in. We sat on the edge of the bed, not touching, the silence heavy between us. Finally she spoke. "How long have you known?" I took a breath. 12 years. I tried to tell Elena's story back then. I was investigating the charity where Marcus worked. Elena came to me, told me everything. But before I could publish, she begged me to stop. He had threatened to take her baby away. She was terrified. I respected her wishes. I've regretted it ever since. Melissa was crying now, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Why didn't you warn me?" I looked at my sister for a long moment, at the girl I had grown up with, the girl who had always been our mother's favorite, the girl who had never once taken my side in any argument. "Would you have believed me?" I asked quietly. "Or would you have told Mom that I was jealous and trying to sabotage your happiness like you've always believed about everything I've ever done?" Melissa opened her mouth to answer, then closed it. She could not deny it. We both knew the truth. We sat together in that hotel room for a long time, not speaking, the weight of the truth settling between us like something physical. Eventually, Melissa left and I finished packing for my flight home. I did not know if my sister and I would ever be close again. I did not know if our family could survive what had happened. But I knew that I had done what Elena could not do for herself. I had made sure her story would finally be heard. The political collapse came quickly. Within 2 weeks of Catherine's article, party leadership made their position clear. Marcus Webb had become toxic, and they wanted him gone before he could drag anyone else down with him. He announced his resignation from the Senate in a brief statement, citing the need to focus on prior personal matters. It was the same euphemism every disgraced politician used, and everyone knew exactly what it meant. The Senate Ethics Committee opened a formal investigation into misuse of office funds, specifically the payments to David Mercer's security consulting firm. But that was only the beginning. The FBI had been building a case based on Mercer's testimony and the financial records he had provided. They charged Marcus with witness intimidation and misuse of federal funds crimes that carried serious prison time. His lawyers negotiated for weeks, trying to reach a plea deal that would avoid a public trial. A trial would have meant more victims coming forward, more stories being told, more damage to whatever remained of his reputation. In the end, Marcus accepted the deal. He pleaded guilty to 2 federal charges and was sentenced to 18 months in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release. He was also ordered to pay a $200,000 fine. I watched the news coverage of his sentencing. The cameras captured him being led away in handcuffs, his head bowed, his expensive suit wrinkled from hours in the courtroom. The same press corps that had once celebrated him as a rising star now photographed his humiliation. The man who had been on the short list for a cabinet position, who had dreamed of the White House, was going to prison. On the civil side, Carmen finally got the justice she had been denied for 12 years. She filed a paternity suit in Virginia family court, and Marcus had no choice but to submit to DNA testing. The results confirmed what Elena had always known. Marcus Webb was Sophia's father. The court ordered him to pay 12 years of back child support, $180,000, plus ongoing monthly payments until Sophia turned 18. It was not enough to make up for the years of abandonment, for the fear and poverty Carmen and Sophia had endured. But it was something. It was acknowledgement. It was the law finally saying that Sophia mattered, that her father could not simply pretend she did not exist. My mother's punishment was different, but in some ways, it was worse. When the full story emerged, including how Linda had helped Marcus exclude me from the wedding at his request, I saw her social circle turned on her. The women at the country club who had envied her daughter's prestigious engagement now whispered about her whenever she walked into a room. The charity boards she had served on for years quietly removed her from their rosters. One former friend, a woman Linda had known for 2 decades, said it to her face. "You chose a predator's comfort over your own daughter. I don't know how to look at you the same way." Linda had spent her whole life building social status, cultivating relationships with the right people, making sure everyone saw her as respectable and successful. Now the thing she had valued most was gone. The wedding that was supposed to be her crowning achievement had become her greatest shame. She had sacrificed her relationship with me for the approval of people who now wanted nothing to do with her. Linda called me after Marcus's sentencing. Her voice was smaller than I had ever heard it, stripped of the confidence and control she usually wielded like weapons. "I was wrong," she said. "I always thought you were strong enough that you didn't need me. I didn't see what I was doing." I listened to her words and I felt the weight of 36 years pressing down on me. All the times she had overlooked me, dismissed me, chosen Melissa over me. All the times I had pretended it did not hurt. "I was strong because I had no choice," I said, "not because I didn't need a mother." There was silence on the line, and I could hear her crying softly. "Can you forgive me?" I thought about the question for a long moment. "I don't hate you, Mom, but I can't pretend the last 36 years didn't happen. If you want a relationship with me now, it has to be different. You'll need to see me as I actually am, not as the daughter who doesn't matter. I'm not sure you know how to do that." She did not argue. She did not make excuses. She just said she would try. It was more than she had ever offered before. Melissa texted me a few days later. "I'm sorry for everything, not just this, but for all the years as I let Mom treat you like you were less. I should have stood up for you. I should have seen what was happening. I was so focused on being the favorite that I never thought about what it cost you. Mom?" I read her message several times before I responded. "I hope you find someone who loves you for real. You deserve that. But I need time before we can be sisters again." She replied with a single word, "Okay." It was a start. Before I flew back to Portland, I visited Carmen and Sophia one last time. We sat in their small living room, the same room where Carmen had first told me Elena's story. Sophia looked different than she had in the photograph that had gone viral. She looked lighter somehow, as if a burden had been lifted from her shoulders. She asked me a question I had been thinking about for months. "Why did you keep trying?" "Everyone else gave up on my mom." I considered my answer carefully. "Because I believed her. Sometimes that's all we can give someone, the simple gift of belief." I removed the butterfly bracelet from my wrist and placed it in Sophia's hands. "This was your mother's. She kept it as proof that she wasn't imagining things, that it really happened. Now the whole world knows she told the truth. This belongs to you now." Sophia hugged me tightly, and I held her the way I wished someone had held Elena all those years ago. Carmen watched us with tears streaming down her face. "Elena used to say that someday someone would listen," she whispered. She never stopped believing, and she was right. 3 months later, I sat on my apartment balcony in Portland, morning coffee in hand, watching the sunrise paint the sky gold and pink. My phone buzzed with a text from Linda. "Thanksgiving is in 2 weeks. I know I don't deserve it, but I'd like to try. Will you come home?" I looked at the message for a long moment. I did not answer yes. I did not answer no. I set the phone down and watched the light spread across the city. For the first time in my life, I did not feel like the forgotten daughter. I did not feel like the sister who did not matter. I felt like Rebecca Torres, a woman who had kept her promise to someone the world forgot. Maybe I would go home, maybe I would not. But for the first time, it would be entirely my choice. And that, I realized, is what freedom feels like. Thank you for staying with Rebecca's story until the end. This story reminds us of something important. Sometimes the quietest person in the room holds the greatest power. Rebecca did not scream or make accusations. She simply showed up, wore a bracelet, and let the truth speak for itself. Her strength was not loud. It was patient. It was persistent. It was rooted in believing someone when no one else would. If there is one lesson to take from this story, it is this: your voice matters, even when powerful people try to silence you. The truth has a way of surfacing, sometimes years later, sometimes through unexpected hands. Never underestimate the power of someone who refuses to forget. And if you are the one others confide in, remember that believing someone can be the greatest gift you ever give them. Elena waited 12 years for someone to listen. Sophia finally got to tell the world who her mother really was. Justice delayed is painful, but justice delivered is powerful. If this story moved you, please subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss another story. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever witnessed someone powerful face consequences for their actions? Have you ever had to wait years for the truth to come out? Share your experience with our community. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today.